Over 11,000 of these planes were produced and used across 60 countries during its 65-year lifespan. Welcome to the MiG-21.
This is the story of the iconic MiG-21, a cornerstone of Cold War aviation history. Soviet doctrine in the mid-20th century required a lightweight Mach 2 interceptor capable of rapid climbs to strike high-altitude nuclear bombers before returning to base. To meet these stringent demands, the Mikoyan Gurevich Bureau moved away from their established swept-wing designs, opting instead to develop an entirely new aerodynamic platform. Following the 1954 YE-1 prototype, the Design Bureau pursued two distinct paths, one exploring swept wings and the other experimenting with delta wing configurations to achieve Mach 2 performance. Early swept wing prototypes reached supersonic speeds, but designers discovered that the 55-degree wings generated excessive wave drag, limiting the aircraft's interception potential. Attempts to boost high-altitude performance, such as the Yi-50 program, integrated liquid-fuel rocket motors. However, these proved dangerously volatile, leading to the program's cancellation after a fatal crash in 1957. The delta wing path proved superior. Testing with the Yi-4 and Yi-5 prototypes demonstrated that delta wings significantly reduced supersonic drag compared to swept-wing alternatives. Comparative analysis highlighted that the delta wing offered greater lifting surface, lower weight, and exceptional climb rates, effectively sealing the fate of the swept-wing program. Refinements continued with engine integration and aerodynamic tweaks, including enlarged flaps and a ventral fin, helping the aircraft achieve a steady speed of Mach 2.05. The Soviet Union used fake designations to obscure the program, while test pilots set remarkable records for both speed and altitude, often outpacing American counterparts of the era. The first production fighters were basic machines, relying on dual 30mm cannons and simple avionics, such as optical gun sights and early radar rangefinders. As the missile age dawned, the design evolved to carry infrared homing missiles. To compensate for the added weight, one cannon was sacrificed in the definitive early production models. While the shock cone and R-11 engine provided immense power, the internal fuel limitations and radar constraints strictly confined the aircraft to a point defense interceptor role. The experimental SK-1 ejection system, intended to protect pilots at high speeds, proved notoriously complex and unreliable, often failing to operate correctly at lower altitudes. Following the Sino-Soviet split, technology transfers allowed China to begin reverse engineering the airframe, eventually leading to the mass production of the Chengdu J-7.
Before we continue with the story of the MiG-21, please like and subscribe. It really does make a difference for me building my channel.
The MiG-21 was designed in the 1950s based on the Soviet philosophy of making aircraft lightweight, rugged, and easy to maintain. With over 11,000 units produced globally, it became one of the most widely used fighters in history, serving in over 60 nations across 4 continents. The MiG-21's design was iconic. Key features included its shock cone for managing supersonic airflow, the distinctive Balalaika delta wing for high-speed stability, an R-25 engine capable of Mach 2, and a versatile armament suite for interception. During the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, the MiG-21 proved its worth. Indian Air Force MiGs secured air superiority and executed a precision strike on the governor's house in Dhaka, which led to the surrender of thousands of troops just 2 days later. In the subcontinent's first supersonic air combat, the MiG-21 faced the F-104 Starfighter. While both had impressive top speeds, the MiG-21 demonstrated superior agility and dominated the conflict with a staggering 13-to-1 success ratio. In Vietnam, the MiG-21 was used effectively in a hit-and-run doctrine. Ground-controlled interceptors vectored the fighters to disrupt U.S. bomber formations, often forcing them to jettison payloads before reaching their targets. The U.S. responded with Operation Bolo, a deception mission. By mimicking the flight profiles of slower bombers, they lured North Vietnamese MiG-21s into an ambush, resulting in a significant tactical loss for the VPAF. In just 13 minutes over Phu Quyen, 7 MiG-21s were destroyed without a single U.S. loss. This lopsided engagement led the North Vietnamese to ground their fleet for months to reassess their tactics. Despite its success in combat, the MiG-21 earned a dark reputation in India. Over time, high loss rates and crashes led the press to call it the flying coffin, highlighting the human cost of its unforgiving design. Several factors contributed to these accidents, including technical limitations, logistical strain from aging hardware, and a critical gap in training as pilots transitioned to the demanding MiG-21 from simpler trainers. Statistically, however, the accident rate of the MiG-21 was relatively low when compared to its massive total flight hours in India. Its high crash count was largely a result of its extensive service and high usage rates. In September 2025, the Indian Air Force officially retired its last MiG-21 squadrons, marking the end of a 62-year era. The aircraft served as a cornerstone of Indian military history before being replaced by the indigenous HAL Tejas. As of 2026, remnants of the MiG-21 fleet remain in service in countries like China, Syria, North Korea, and Cuba, serving in various secondary roles despite the challenges of aging airframes. With over 11,000 units produced, the MiG-21 and its variants became a defining symbol of Cold War air power. Its simplicity and mass production made it the primary supersonic fighter for nations across 4 continents for decades. Following the Korean War, the Soviet Union needed a lightweight, high-altitude interceptor. The breakthrough came with the Yi-4 prototype in 1955, which introduced the iconic tailed delta-wing design, affectionately dubbed the Balalaika by Soviet pilots. The MiG-21, or fishbed, featured a delta-wing configuration for high-speed stability. However, the design had trade-offs, including a limited radar capacity due to its shock cone intake and center of gravity shifts caused by its internal fuel management. Production was spread across specialized hubs. Gaz-21 in Gorky handled domestic production for the Soviet Air Force. Gaz-30 in Moscow focused on exports for Warsaw Pact allies, and Gaz-31 in Tbilisi specialized in 2-seat operational trainers. During the Vietnam War, MiG-21 pilots utilized ground-controlled interception to execute high-speed, hit-and-run ambushes. By exploiting U.S. rules of engagement, they successfully disrupted nearly 20% of American strike sorties by late 1966. To counter these tactics, Colonel Robin Olds devised Operation Bolo. American F-4 Phantoms used electronic jamming pods and specific flight patterns to mimic slower F-105 bombers, effectively drawing the MiG-21s into an aerial trap. On January 2, 1967, the trap was sprung. In just 13 minutes, U.S. forces destroyed 7 MiG-21s without a single loss, securing 4 months of relative air superiority in the region. Combat experience drove further evolution. Later, Generation 3 variants, like the SMT, featured a larger dorsal spine for increased fuel capacity, upgraded engines, and integrated cannons to improve dogfighting performance. The relationship between the USSR and China soured by 1960, leading to the abrupt withdrawal of Soviet technical advisors. Despite this, China pursued the development of their own version of the fighter using limited technical data. Reverse engineering the aircraft was a monumental task. Chinese engineers at Shenyang had to disassemble available aircraft to understand the design, eventually solving nearly 250 critical manufacturing flaws to fly the first indigenous J-7 in 1966. One major improvement involved the cockpit. The original Soviet design's canopy separating ejection system was deemed unreliable and dangerous. Chinese engineers redesigned it with a rear-hinged canopy and a new rocket ejection seat, enhancing pilot safety. In the late 1970s, China sought to upgrade their fleet by accessing advanced Soviet technology. By leveraging diplomatic channels with Egypt, China acquired an Egyptian MiG-21 MF, allowing them to reverse engineer it to create the J-7 III. Other nations also took on licensed production. Czechoslovakia built the Z-159, while India became the largest operator outside the communist bloc, continuously modernizing their fleet through Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. In the 21st century, various upgrade programs have kept the design relevant. Variants like the Indian MiG-21 Bison, Romanian Lancer, and Chinese J-7G have integrated modern pulse Doppler radars, helmet-mounted sights, and beyond visual range missile capabilities. The MiG-21's legacy is defined by its global reach, serving in over 60 nations. It remains the first supersonic aircraft to be operated extensively across the developing world, leaving an indelible mark on global air combat doctrine. Ultimately, The MiG-21 stands as a testament to the effectiveness of simple, reliable engineering. Its ability to adapt through decades of technological advancement ensures it remains a significant chapter in the history of military aviation.